At my only son's funeral, his wife told me I couldn't sit in the front row, so I stood up and exposed everything. The church was filled with polished faces and muted whispers, Boston's elite in sleek black, murmuring condolences and quietly analyzing each other's jewelry. I stood near the entrance, cane in hand, not from weakness, but because appearances mattered. At 72, I had mastered the art of looking frail while holding back a storm. I had raised Daniel Marlowe to lead. He was my only child, my heartbeat, the one reason I never remarried after losing his father. At just 44, he had taken the reins of Marlowe Holdings, our family company, and grown it into something formidable. He was everything I had poured my life into. And now, he lay behind that closed mahogany casket, too young, too sudden, too unfinished. As I made my way down the aisle toward the front row, toward my rightful place beside the man I brought into this world, she stepped in front of me, Sabrina, 29, breathtaking, composed. Every inch of her tailored black dress was curated for the cameras, her makeup subtle, flawless. A veil half covered her perfectly sculpted cheekbones. To anyone watching, she looked like the epitome of young widowhood. "I've reserved a seat for you," she said, placing a manicured hand gently on my arm. "In the 5th row. I know how emotional these things can be." I blinked at her, stunned. "Excuse me?" She smiled softly, sympathetically. "We thought it would be less stressful for you." My gaze slid past her to the front row, 3 seats, all occupied by her family. Strangers, people who hadn't known Daniel 5 years ago, who never saw him as a boy, who didn't hold his hand when he broke his arm at 7 or stayed up all night when he flunked his first college exam, who hadn't stood by him after his devastating divorce. That space was mine, and she knew it. But in that moment, surrounded by eyes, cameras, and power, I let her lead me to the back. My body sat down, but my heart did not. Whispers began, quiet, pointed. "Isn't that his mother? Why is she back there?" I kept my chin lifted, but inside, something broke. Not just the grief, not just the shame, but the realization that I had been pushed out of my own son's story. People assumed my age made me irrelevant. They forgot I built everything Daniel ever stood on. Later, as the minister spoke of Daniel's generosity, as Sabrina dabbed her dry eyes with trembling precision, my mind drifted back to the first time he brought her home. That dazzling smile, the too smooth story of how they met at a fundraiser, the way she seemed to charm everyone except me. I wasn't jealous, I was cautious. And I've learned over a lifetime that when something looks too perfect, it almost always is. I'm not sharing this for pity. I've never needed that. I'm sharing this because I know someone out there needs to hear it. If this story resonates with you, subscribe, leave a comment, or just stay with me. You're not alone. After my fall in the garden that spring, a slip more irritating than alarming, Daniel insisted he and Sabrina move into the estate, just for a little while, as he put it. "Until we know you're really okay, Mom. You shouldn't be alone." I had lived in that house for over 40 years, longer than Sabrina had even been alive. But Daniel's voice carried such gentle concern that I didn't argue. They moved in within the week. At first, I welcomed the company. Sabrina brought fresh-cut flowers into the dining room each morning, claiming they were to lift the mood. She started organizing the pantry, labeling spice jars, rearranging the linen closet. She even offered to take over scheduling my appointments, said she was just better at logistics. Then my wedding photo disappeared from the hallway. Next went Daniel's childhood trophies. My books were boxed, my art replaced with abstract prints I didn't recognize. When I asked about the changes, Sabrina smiled like I was a child asking about the weather. "We're just making things more functional for you. Less clutter means fewer falls, remember?" She began speaking for Daniel in front of our staff, and even to our family attorney. "Helen's been a bit confused lately," she'd say in hushed tones. "Daniel thinks it's best we handle the accounts, just for now." It wasn't just my belongings vanishing. It was my authority, my voice. I began noticing changes in Daniel, too. He looked tired, his hands occasionally trembling as he poured his coffee. Sometimes he would lose his train of thought mid-sentence. One evening, he forgot the name of a company he had founded himself. When I asked if he was okay, Sabrina appeared behind him like a shadow and answered for him. "He's fine, just working too hard. You know how he is." But I did know how he was. And this wasn't him, so I started documenting. Every odd interaction, every strange comment. I opened an encrypted journal and hid it behind accounting files on my laptop. I may be old, but I'm not obsolete. Then I reached out to the 2 people I trusted more than anyone left in my life. Maria, our housekeeper of 30 years, quiet, loyal, and sharp as ever. And Lydia, my former executive assistant, now retired but still well-connected. Through her, I found James Darden, a former fraud investigator with a knack for family estate cases. "I need you to look into my daughter-in-law," I told him plainly, quietly. Within 2 weeks, James returned with more than I was ready to hear. "Sabrina Taylor has never held a psychology license in any state," he said, setting down a folder on my desk. "She faked her credentials. No Stanford, no doctoral degree, and this isn't her first marriage." I stared at the photos. Sabrina, blonde then with 2 different elderly men, smiling in wedding portraits. Both men dead within a year of marriage. Both estates signed over to her name. No criminal charges filed, clean enough to be intentional. "And this man?" I asked, pointing to one final photo. "Eli Ward, probate lawyer. History of pushing through sketchy wills in exchange for quiet payouts. He's been seen meeting her twice in the past month." It was all there. Motive, method, pattern. I confronted Daniel that evening, choosing my words carefully, hoping some part of him still heard his mother's voice. "She's not who you think she is, Daniel," I said. "She's lied about everything. I have the proof." He didn't even look at the file I placed in front of him. "You never trusted anyone I loved," he snapped. "You hated Emily, too. You even hated my high school girlfriend. Sabrina has done more for me than you ever did." His words hit harder than I expected. Maybe because in some ways they weren't entirely untrue. I was hard on Emily. I had high standards, but I had always been there. Every single time. And now he couldn't even see me. Within days, I was locked out of board meetings. My doctor of 20 years, Dr. Chen, stopped returning my calls. Sabrina said she'd found someone better suited to geriatric care. A week later, I found a printed brochure for a care facility tucked into my mail. Holbrook Place, where dignity meets comfort. They were trying to erase me, so I did the only thing I could. That night at dinner, Daniel was unusually quiet. Sabrina served the wine herself, swirling the glasses with a practiced hand. When no one was watching, I bumped the table just enough to spill his glass slightly, then offered mine in return. "Here, sweetheart," I said. "Take mine instead." He didn't notice. He took it, smiled, sipped, and so did I. 2 hours later, in the middle of the night, I collapsed outside my bedroom, the floor cool beneath my cheek, my vision spinning. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, one thought repeated over and over. Now I know the truth, but will I live long enough to prove it? The lights above my hospital bed hummed softly as I opened my eyes. The air smelled of antiseptic and wilted flowers. My chest ached, but I was alive. Dr. Langford stood beside me, holding a chart and wearing an expression I knew well from my boardroom days. Tight, cautious, and full of something he hadn't figured out how to say yet. "We found something," he began gently. "Your blood work shows traces of aconitine. It's a plant-based toxin, very rare, very specific. It mimics cardiac failure almost perfectly." I closed my eyes. So it wasn't in my head. I wasn't just an old woman losing her grip. I had been poisoned. The very next morning, before I could act on that information, the call came. Daniel was gone. "They say it was his heart," Maria whispered as she sat at the foot of my hospital bed, tears soaking into her sleeves. "Just like your episode. But they didn't. They didn't test him, Helen. Sabrina refused the autopsy, said it would be cruel." I didn't cry, not right away. Grief didn't move through me like a storm. It came as stillness, a heavy silence pressing against my ribs. I didn't scream. I simply stared out the window and quietly promised my son that I would not let this be the final word. At the funeral, it happened again. Sabrina intercepted me just as I reached the chapel doors. "This is a delicate time," she said, eyes glassy but dry. "For everyone's comfort, I've seated you with the extended family." In the back, again. I looked at her, this woman who had dismantled my family, with a smile, and nodded. I did not protest. I did not make a scene, because I knew something she didn't. While Sabrina paraded her grief in front of Boston's most powerful families, I had been gathering every thread of truth. With James Darden's help, I compiled everything. Audio recordings of whispered late-night calls between Sabrina and Eli Ward, discussing accounts and timelines. Signed statements from Daniel's real physician, Dr. Chen, confirming Sabrina had blocked access and changed prescriptions without his knowledge. A digital paper trail, financial transfers routed through shell companies into accounts in the Cayman Islands. And then, tucked behind a stack of engineering books in Daniel's study, I found the final piece, a letter, handwritten, addressed to me. Mom, if you're reading this, I hope you trust yourself. Something's wrong. I've been tired, confused, I'm scared, but too far gone to see it clearly. I don't know who to believe anymore, but if anyone can figure this out, it's you. I'm sorry I didn't listen. Love, Daniel. That night I sat at my desk, holding the letter with one hand and a brandy in the other, and made a promise to him, to myself, and to every mother who's ever watched her child be taken from her one piece at a time. You will not vanish into her version of history, not while I have breath left in me. Sabrina announced a charity gala a few weeks later in Daniel's name, the Marlowe Legacy Fund, a celebration of his life and, not coincidentally, her new public role as head of his foundation. She invited everyone who mattered in Boston. She did not invite me. I attended anyway. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and curated grief. Guests sipped champagne and murmured platitudes under soft jazz. Sabrina stood near a projection screen, draped in black silk, a vision of solemn elegance. When she began her speech, speaking of Daniel's compassion, his vision for giving back, and how she would carry that torch, I stepped forward. No one noticed at first. I walked slowly toward the podium, heels echoing on the marble floor, and took the microphone as she turned in confusion. "Helen, what are you doing?" I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled my phone from my purse, tapped play, and held it up to the mic. Her voice filled the room. "He's signing the new will next week. The confusion, the fatigue, it's progressing. Everything is lining up." A gasp rippled across the guests. On the screen behind us, photographs flickered to life. Sabrina embracing Eli Ward at a hotel, financial documents, audio transcripts, Daniel's letter. The lights came up. From the back of the ballroom, 2 FBI agents stepped forward, flanking Sabrina and Eli. "Sabrina Taylor," one agent announced, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and suspicion of homicide." She spun to me, eyes wild. "She's delusional! She's senile!" But I stood straight, clear-eyed, no cane, no trembling. "You destroyed my son," I said, calm and unwavering, "but you will not erase him." 6 months later, the front doors of the Daniel Marlowe Center for Elder Justice opened to a line of guests, advocates, survivors, and supporters. A plaque beneath the marble archway bore Daniel's name in gold leaf. Just beneath it, the words I had chosen carefully, "Because dignity has no expiration date." The center now offers free legal aid, housing protection, and medical advocacy for seniors navigating the quiet, devastating forms of manipulation I had come to know too well. Financial exploitation, forced control, the slow gaslighting of a once capable mind, these weren't rare cases. They were just quietly endured. Not anymore. I donated 40% of my estate to launch the foundation. My home, the very mansion where so much of this story took place, was repurposed. Its walls now hold not secrets, but service. The East Wing houses our community library and legal research space. The West Wing contains a memorial room dedicated to Daniel, his journals, photos, business plans, and even the worn baseball glove he refused to part with well into adulthood. His office remains untouched, preserved as it was the last time I saw him sitting at that desk. Dr. Langford and James Darden now serve proudly on the board. Their expertise, their vigilance became the shield I wish more families had access to. And Maria, dear Maria, who never once flinched when I was being made to doubt myself, is now the operations manager of the entire estate. I sometimes walk the gardens just to feel the quiet again. The house feels different now, not haunted, not hollow, alive. I narrate all this not out of pride, but out of purpose. I lost my son, but I didn't lose his legacy. I didn't lose myself, and I won't let another woman go through this fight alone. Last Sunday, I visited Daniel's grave. I brought fresh roses, white and deep red, his favorite, and brushed away the leaves that had gathered around the base. "You were right to be scared," I whispered, "but I was right to trust my instinct. I miss you, my brilliant boy, but you helped me find my fire again. And to you, if you're still listening, thank you." I don't share this to dwell in sorrow, but because someone out there needs to know, you're not crazy. Trust your gut, trust your story, And never let anyone tell you you're too old to fight back. Like, subscribe, or just share your own story in the comments. I'm here. We all are.